Welcome to the Musicians Creating Prosperity podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Fabiana Claure, and in today's episode, we are going to tune up and get ready for setting the best intentions to start this new year, 2025, with the best strategy, clarity, in order to get the best results. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome. This is the Musicians Creating Prosperity podcast. And if you're excited about starting 2025, I'm super happy to share with you the best strategies that will not only capitalize on the momentum that you have as we start the new year, but also make sure that you put a plan in place that will allow you to execute on your goals. So let's talk about the three most important things you need to start focusing on and zeroing in as you start 2025. The first thing is to start, believe it or not, with the end in mind. I know we're starting the new year. I know you're thinking of all the goals, all the things you want to set in place, but here's what I want you to do to begin with. Instead of picturing yourself at the beginning of the year, the first step is to picture yourself at the end of 2025. Why? Because only when you have a clear picture of where you want to be at the end of this year, and when you are able to connect emotionally, when you're able to connect really not just in terms of the vision, but also how it's going to feel to achieve those goals, only then can you reverse engineer exactly the steps you need to take in order to get there. So, why is this important? Because when you have a clear anchor, a clear vision of the end goal, not just for the end of this year, but also beyond that, here's the thing. The longer your vision, the more you're looking into the future, the more you're going to raise a filter that will allow you to eliminate distractions and show you what are the things you're doing right now that are not conducive towards your goal. And I've shared this because I recently did this exercise as part of my own process of just reflection and planning for this next year and even the next 10 years and the next 100 years. I did an exercise that was really about seeing how far do I want my movement to go even beyond the time I'm in this planet. And that really got me to a place of reflection of like, wow, like if I could envision where I want to go and where everything that I'm putting in place now, where I want it to end, what is the result? How do I even want to be remembered? It's a beautiful process of actually seeing what is it that you're doing that really, really matters, and how can you start taking action intentionally today, even if it's in small steps, towards your ultimate goal. It's very comfortable sometimes to just envision what do you want in the near future, but I want to encourage you not only to envision what do you want at the end of this year, but also how can you stretch that vision 10 years into the future, even 100 years into the future? What would you want people to remember you by? What would you want people to think that because of the time you lived in this earth, things are better? You improved something, you helped people. How do you want to be remembered? And these are deep questions, but I want to encourage you to actually go there as you are envisioning what you need to do in this moment you're in, and specifically in this year. As you start thinking about your goals, 100 years into the future, 10 years into the future, and 1 year into the future, you're going to start realizing that there are some common values and some goals that you may not have thought of before because you were so stuck in the day-to-day. And as you start envisioning, what do you want your life to look like 10 years from now? How do you want to be remembered 100 years from now? What does the end of 2025 need to look like for you to know that you are on pace to your 10-year goal or 20-year goal? And then from there, starting to identify some core values. Why is that important? Because all the decisions that you're going to make around how you spend your time are going to be centered around your values. And if they're not, then that's a really important place to start. At the moment, you may be focused perhaps on just making it through the end of the year, end of the day, end of the month, in this survival mode. And a lot of the musicians that I speak to, and I've certainly found myself in that way many, many times, but being caught up in survival mode keeps your filter, your perspective really low. And it doesn't allow you to go back and step back and really see what else can you do with your life and how can you make sure that the decisions you're making on a day-to-day basis are in alignment with your values. For me specifically, as a mom of two boys who are still very young, I have a 5-year-old and 10-year-old, one of my core values is really being able to be as present as I can for them. And of course, for my husband too. We've been together almost 30 years. And yet, as I was looking through my goals and my plans and looking through all of the things that I have in my calendar for 2025, and because I was pushing myself to envision a much larger goal than just what I wanted this year, I realized that I personally needed to reduce my work schedule significantly to make more time to be more present, because one thing is to say you want something, to have that intention. And another thing is to make your calendar match those goals. So personally for me, I had to really look and say, okay, if this is my vision, I have a 10-year-old in 8 years, he's going to be out of the house. So basically I have 8 years left with him, in this type of intimate setting of being day in and day out with him. And I have obviously a 5-year-old who I still have a little bit more time, but still these are such precious years that in the grand scheme of things, if I look at like what I want to see happen in my life 100 years from now, this is just a small fraction of my life. This is a small period of my life that I'm going to be spending in these next decade, basically. And so it helped me really realize, wow, I need to make sure that I create a better schedule, that I protect my boundaries more, that I make sure my weekends are more available, and that I actually align everything that I want in my life with how my calendar looks like. I was able to reduce my schedule, give my team more boundaries, and let them know these are the times that I'm available for meetings, for calls, for coaching, for all the things that you need me. And these are other times that I'm, as of now, no longer going to be available for. And that took this step that I'm sharing with you, this moment of realization of saying, wow, if I look 10 years into the future, my oldest son is no longer going to be home. My youngest is going to be potentially, in high school, getting ready to leave. And where do I want to be at that time? Like, how do I want my life to look like? How do I want to feel about what I've done in these last 10 years? And that was huge. That was a really beautiful wake-up call to make decisions now about my schedule for this year, 2025. So I'm sharing this with you because you may have priorities right now or things that you've been meaning to put together, making the time for, whether it's your family, whether it's your health, whether it's your creative projects. And because you're maybe stuck in the day-to-day grind of just like doing one thing after the next, you're missing on actually prioritizing them and making them part of your schedule now. So I encourage you to look in your life and, again, starting with creating a longer vision for your life, not just the end of 2025. Go beyond that. Go 10 years into the future, even 100 years if you need to. And then reverse engineer, where do you want to be at the end of this period? How does your life look like? How does it feel to have the schedule that you're envisioning? I talk to so many musicians who tell me, I don't even take time to think about these things. These goals that you're talking about, Fabiana, they're not in my radar. And I understand that because, as I said, it can easily get buried with the day-to-day life activities and priorities and just survival mode. But as we start 2025, I want you to envision your life not only at the end of 2025, but at the end of 2035. And then what happens in 100 years? Really stretch yourself as far as you can and don't think you're being speculative or too ambitious or any of that. This is about clarity. And once you have made those decisions, you're going to see how immediately a lot of what you're spending your time on right now no longer needs to be in your calendar. I know personally, as a content creator, as an entrepreneur, as a thought leader, as someone who's really building not just a business or businesses in my case, but truly a movement to help musicians create prosperity. I'm in it for the long run, and I'm really committed to spreading my message, spreading the vision of what's possible for musicians, being able to help as many musicians and creatives as possible through the work that I do, both in my coaching programs with my services, my products, as well as through my content, my podcast, my YouTube channel, my emails. Everything that I'm creating online is part of a bigger mission of helping artists develop a place in society where they can be valued, where they can be respected, where they can feel deserving, worthy, where they can thrive by both serving the community, but also by being aligned in the process, not being in a place of burnout, not working from a place of overwhelm or struggle. And that's an ambitious goal. That's a big mission. And there's many ways that I focus on delivering that. But again, when you think about for you, what does that look like? Even though these are big, important questions, they don't have to be impossible. They don't have to seem like, oh, but this is so far into the future, Fabiana, it makes no sense. Why should I even think about this? No, these are things that you want to look at now so that you can reverse engineer where in your life do you need to make adjustments. The good news is once you do come into clarity, once you do make that decision, you decide this is what I want to focus on, these are my goals, then you actually are going to have a lot more confidence to be able to say no to things that you may be saying yes to right now. Life isn't just about saying yes to things and trying to put as many things on your plate as you can. It's actually more about what you say no to. How much can you get rid of today that is no longer guiding you towards your goals? How much can you start eliminating and chipping away? If you've ever heard of the story of Michelangelo, who was interviewed once after he created his beautiful sculpture, the David, and he was asked, how did you come up with that beautiful masterpiece? What did you think? What were the thoughts? What was the strategy to build this beautiful masterpiece in this precious stone that you created in this marble piece? He said, I just chipped away what wasn't the David. And that's what I want you to think about. That's where you need to go right now. Rather than adding things to your calendar in 2025, and thinking, I'm going to do this and this and this and this, I encourage you to take this a step back, dream bigger, envision your life at the end of 2025, at the end of 2035 and beyond, and then start asking yourself, what do I need to remove from my schedule today, this year? What do I need to adjust so that I can actually make space for the true things that will matter, the things that will actually get me to my goal? Obviously, this isn't something that you're meant to do on your own, of course. This is something that if you find that you're struggling or you're finding that you need more direction or more strategy to clarify that and to specifically find out the action steps of what it would take for you to get to that goal that you envisioned. Of course, you can reach out. My team and I are happy to have a conversation with you. There should be a link below this show notes where you can book a call. And we're always happy to be able to share our perspective on what are those gaps perhaps that you may be lacking, that you may be missing, or the things that you may be overdoing right now in your life that no longer need to be a part of it. So definitely reach out if you feel like you need more support or more clarity around what are those things that you may be wasting your time on that you want to get rid of in order to reach your goals. But here's what I want you to think about as we wrap up this episode. You have the power of changing your life. You have the power of changing your outcomes. But the most important way you're going to do that is not only strategizing the vision, anchoring what you need to let go of, creating a much higher perspective, a much more driven and ambitious and long-term goal. But here's the most important part in order for you to make that happen. You can only achieve these goals when you commit to becoming a different version of yourself in order to get there. Only when you commit to asking yourself, who do I need to become in order to reach these goals? How does this current version of myself need to evolve in order for me to have this reality at the end of 2025, at the end of 2035? If you have ever looked at the work of Ben Hardy with 10X is easier than 2X or Be Your Future Self Now, so many self-development programs out there that are always talking about how we can only achieve our goals when we commit to becoming a different versions of ourselves. That's how you're ultimately going to amplify every single thing I shared in this episode. It's not just anchoring the vision, but it's also anchoring the behaviors and the traits that you need to become better at in order to reach those goals. For me, I personally remember as I was looking through and just anchoring my vision for 2025 and 2035 and beyond, one of the most important things that I had to realize is that what got me here in terms of my behaviors, my traits, my perspective even on life will not get me to the next stage. And there are certain parts of my habits, my routines, my discipline, my ability to follow through on my own commitments, my own internal promises, and so many other ways of protecting my focus and attention that need to be optimized so that I can stay more grounded, so that I can eliminate redundancies and really apply this on multiple areas of my life, in my health, in my relationships, in my work, in my creative pursuits, in every area of my life. I had to identify some key traits that are going to need to become part of Fabiana version 2.0, if you will, coming into this new year. Until you don't recognize what those need to be for you, all of this work that I just shared, all of these strategies will only get you so far. If you want to make it till the end, if you want to absolutely crush 2025, it starts with looking at the end in mind. It starts with identifying where you can let go of things that are no longer conducive to your larger goals. And finally, it ends with who do you need to become in order to make that happen? How do you need to perhaps learn to say no in a more assertive way? How can you create better boundaries in your relationships? What are some attitudes or behaviors, maybe some negative self-talk, maybe some limiting beliefs that are still holding you back? Where in your life can you commit to becoming the next version of yourself in order to make your goals happen? If you can clarify that, I promise you, you are going to be unstoppable in 2025. I hope this helps. Let me know what your takeaways are. And as always, if you have any questions, you would like to get some additional guidance, feel free to book a call. There's a link below here in the show notes. We'd be happy to talk to you. Have a happy 2025. And until next time, let's prosper together.